A very good morning, children. Welcome back to the English online class. Children, in today's English class, we are going to start with the grammar portion and with a new topic of direct and indirect speech, which is also known as reported speech. So, let us first talk about what is reported speech. We can define it as there are two ways of narrating or saying anything. First, by using the actual words of the speaker, and secondly, by reporting what has been said. When we use the exact words of the speaker without any change anywhere, it is called direct form. This is done by enclosing the speech within inverted commas. When, however, the words of the speaker are reported without using the actual words, it is called the indirect form of narration. The following examples will make this clear to you. So let us see the examples. The first sentence in the first example is given in direct statement, direct speech, and the second one is given in indirect speech. So here is the first one. He said, I shall go home. So this statement is given here in direct speech. As you can see, the actual words or the exact words of the speaker written in inverted commas, the words are I shall go home. So these are the actual words of the speaker which is written in inverted comma. So you can easily classify that this is direct speech because the direct or the exact words of the speaker is given here. Now in the second statement, he said that he would go home. Now the same statement is written in indirect speech. He said that he would go home. So here the exact word of the speaker is not given. So we call it indirect speech. The second example is here. I said he has not done his homework. Now again this is the direct speech. And the same sentence how we will write in indirect speech, you can see here. I said that he had not done his homework. Now the third one, Sita said, I am not going to school today. So this statement is again in direct speech. Now the same statement in indirect speech how we will write, Sita said that she was not going to school that day. In the direct form, the actual words of the speaker has been enclosed with inverted commas and quotation begins with a capital letter as you have seen in the example here. As you can see here, the exact word of the speaker is written in inverted commas and the first letter has begun with the capital letter. In the indirect form, the main words are the same, but the construction is a bit different. The main differences are in the indirect form. You can say that the inverted commas have been replaced by the word that is affirmative sentences. The comma after the main verb disappears. The pronouns and the tenses are also changed. The words indicating nearness have been changed into words signifying distance. The direct narration has two parts. The first one is the reporting speech and the second one is the reported speech. The speech which is outside the inverted commas is called reporting speech and its verb. The reporting verb, while the speech within the inverted commas is the reported speech, the speech that includes the actual words of the speaker. Interrogative sentences end with the question with the mark of interrogation, that is the question mark, while exclamatory and optative sentences end with a mark of exclamation. Now the rules for the conversion of statements. Now let us see the rule number 1. Change in the reporting verb. The reporting verb said is changed into told, added, observed, remarked, promised, etc. For example, as you can see here, the first one, he said to Ram, Mohan will go. So this statement is given in the direct speech. When we will convert the same into indirect speech, the sentence will be, he told. In place of said, now it has become told. So he told Ram that Mohan would go. So now it is the indirect speech. The second example is here. He said Mohan is clever. Now the same statement which is written in the direct speech, how we will convert the same into indirect speech? Let us see. He remarked in place of said. Now we have used here remarked that Mohan was clever. Now the third one, Shruti said, brother, I'm ready. I'm already late. So now this statement is in the direct speech. Now let us change into the indirect speech. In place of said, in the indirect speech, it has been changed into told. So the statement is here, Shruti told her brother that she was already late. So remember that the reporting verb said is changed into told only when it is followed by an object. If there is no object, said will not change. Rule number 2. Changes in the speech introducing the reporting speech. The inverted commas are removed and that is placed instead. He said to me, you are a clever boy. So this is the direct speech. How we will remove the inverted commas and put that is in place of the inverted commas in indirect speech. Let us see. He told me that I was a clever boy. So by removing the inverted commas, now what we have put here? That. Rule number 3. Changes in the tense of the verb in the reported speech. If the reporting verb is in the present or future tense, the tense of the verb in the reported speech is not changed. For example, in the direct speech, the teacher says he is an intelligent boy. Now, in the indirect speech, it will become the teacher says that he is an intelligent boy. So here you can see that says has not changed. If the reporting verb is in the past tense, the tense of the verb in the reported speech is changed into the corresponding past tense. That is, you can see the example here given in the columns. What are the words that we use in direct speech and the words when we write in the indirect speech, how it changes. Let us see. The first one is the words in indirect speech, that is mr, changes as was and were in indirect speech. Has and have changes to had, was and were changes to had been, the auxiliary verb will changes to would, shall to should, can, could, and may into might. The exception to rule number third be if the reported speech expresses some universal truth or habitual fact or some characteristics, the tense of the verb is not changed. Universal truth. Our teacher said man is mortal. So the same sentence, if you will write an indirect sentence, it will be our teacher said that man is mortal. The second one is habit. He said to me, I walk daily in the morning. Now the same speech we will write in the indirect speech. It will be he told that he walks daily in the morning. Now the third one is characteristics. He said gold is one of the most useful metals. The statement that is written in the direct speech, if we will change the same in indirect speech, it will be he said that gold is one of the most useful metals. Rule number 4. Change in the personal pronouns in the reported speech. Pronouns of the first person in the reported speech of the direct form are changed in the indirect terms to the person of the subject of the reporting verb. He said, I'm not guilty. The same we will write in indirect sentence. He said that he was not guilty. Pronoun of the second person is in the reported speech of direct form are changed in the indirect form to the person of the object of the reporting verb. For example, he said to me, you are right. Now, if you will change the sentence into indirect speech, it will be, he told me that I was right. So pronouns of the third person in the reported speech remain unchanged in indirect speech. For example, I said to him, she is very clever. If you will write this sentence in indirect speech, it will be, I told him that she was very clever. Rule number 5. The words in the reported speech expressing nearness are changed into words expressing distance. For example, the word that is written in the direct speech now is changed into then in indirect speech. The word here changes to there. Today, that day. Yesterday, the previous day. Tomorrow, the next day. Last night, the previous night. This, that. These, those. Ago, before. Tonight, that night. Thus, so. Next day or next week. The following day or the following week. Rule number 6. Rules for the conversion of interrogative sentences. In interrogative sentences, the first rule is the reporting verb said is changed into asked or inquired of. For example, he said to me, will you go? Now, if you will change this into indirect speech, this interrogative sentence will be, he asked me whether if I would go. Whether or if I would go. Or he inquired. Instead of asked, we can also use the word inquired, and the interrogative sentence will be, he inquired of me if or whether I would go. Rule number 2. Remove the comma and the inverted commas. In case of questions which are introduced by the finite verb or its auxiliaries is, am, are, was, were, do, does, did, can, may, will, shall, has, have, had, etc., in which the answer is in yes or no, introduce if or whether to join the principal clause with the subordinate one. He said to me, have you done your homework? Now, the same sentence, if we will change into indirect speech, it will be he said me, he asked me if or whether I had done my homework. In case of interrogative sentences, which begin with interrogative pronouns or adverbs like which, what, why, when, where, how, etc., the first word of the sentence is made the connectivity. For example, he said to me, why are you late today? Now, if we will change it into indirect speech, it will be he asked me why I was late that day. Remember, the mark of interrogation, that is the question mark, is never retained in the indirect form, and the subject is brought before the verb as in assertive sentences. Rule number 7 is rules for the conversion of imperative sentences. In imperative sentences, the first rule is the reporting verb is changed into ordered, command, requested, advised, etc. For example, he said to me, please don't keep me waiting so long. The same sentence, if we will change into indirect speech, the sentence will be, he requested me not to keep him waiting so long. Rule number 2, the reported speech is changed into the infinitive mode by infinitive mode introducing to in place of inverted commas. For example, he said to me, go out. If we will change it into indirect speech, it will be, he ordered me to go out. Rule number 8. Rules for the conversion of exclamatory and optative sentence. In exclamatory and optative sentences, the first rule is reporting verb said is changed into exclaimed in the case of exclamatory sentences, and into wished or prayed in the case of optative sentences. He said, for example, he said, hurrah, we have won the match. The same sentence, if we will write in indirect speech, it will be, he exclaimed with delight that they had won the match. An exclamatory sentence contains words which express certain strong emotion of anger, joy, surprise, resentment, hatred, etc. Therefore, these feelings are added to the following verbs thus. For example, alas, exclaimed with sorrow, hurrah, exclaimed with joy, oh, exclaimed with regret, ah, exclaimed with delight, pooh, pooh, exclaimed with contempt. Rule number 2 is first, change the exclamatory or optative sentences into assertive sentences, and then follow rule 2 in the case of assertive sentences. For example, he said, what a fine bird it is. If we will change the sentence into indirect speech, it will be, he exclaimed. In place of said, it will be exclaimed that it was a very fine bird. The sign of exclamation is omitted and all interjections such as alas, hurrah, etc. are dropped. Follow the rule for the change of tenses, personal pronouns, etc. As in the case of assertive sentences, Example, alas, how extravagant I have been, said he. Now, this sentence, if we will change into indirect one, the sentence will be he confessed with regret that he had been very extravagant. All forms of addresses, exclamations such as good morning, good evening, hurrah, alas, etc., should be omitted, but the sense of the sentence should be retained. So, children, I hope that today's online session on direct and indirect speech was helpful to you, and I hope that you all have understood it. Now, children, what you have to do next is you have to complete the grammar exercises of the chapter Direct and Indirect Speech on your grammar book. Do try to complete it with pencil only, because the answers I will share afterwards at the end of this week. But first, try to do it yourself and try to do it with pencil. So that was all for today. Thank you.